All right, Brian. So I got a quick question for you. It's not going to be quick, actually. 7 years ago, you're coming up on 7 years for the anniversary at starting Choice Real Estate. In the last 12 months or so, you've just blown up. Your agent count has gone through the roof. What's the secret? What's going on?
Yeah, the overnight secret, right? I mean, the last 12 months have blown up, but we started almost 7 years ago. I don't know. I guess you get to some kind of boiling point, right? At 211 degrees, the water is still, and at 212 degrees, it's boiling. So I think that it's just a lot of momentum leading up to 2024. And the agents that were here were really buying into what we were doing. And so the word started getting out there. And we saw, we had about 60% growth, I guess, in 2024. So I think we ended 2023 with about 120 agents, and we ended 2024 with just over 200 agents.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so I can't pinpoint a reason. I like to think, we just look inwardly. So like when I look at growth, in fact, somebody asked me recently if I had what my growth goal was for 2025. And I was like, well, I don't have a growth goal. I would always encourage our agents, they need to have some business goals and they need to be thinking about their business in a certain way. It's healthy. But for us, I look at it and say, if I have some goal for 2025 and I say, I want to hit this number, right now we're at about 225 agents. Let's say that I said, I want to be at 250 agents by the end of the year. And we get to July and we're not tracking to that number. Well, are we then all of a sudden changing what we're doing and saying, okay, well, now we've got to focus on getting to that number. We set this arbitrary growth goal that now we're trying to get to what end, for what purpose? So for us, I look at it and say, well, if every day we show up and we're just looking inwardly and we're supporting our agents in a meaningful way, our growth is going to be what it is. I mean, my philosophy is I want Choice to be the best possible brokerage. That's it, period. The best brokerage available to agents. If we do that, like we don't recruit, we shouldn't have to recruit. It should be a field of dreams model, right? If you build it, they will come. So, but having said that, it makes it hard to say like, oh, well, we did this thing, or this is why, growth was really strong last year. I was just talking to our office administrator today. We've onboarded 14 agents so far in March, and like 0 of them were recruited. And these are all people that raised their hand who were referred by an agent that said, hey, I want to talk and hear about Choice.
Yeah, that word recruit is a bad word these days. It's all about attraction, right? And I so believe in that. Yeah, I've been on the recruiting side for the last 13 years. And it's come to me that that's not always the best interest for the agent or the company. If you do have those goals and you're focused on that growth and not the quality of your company and just making sure that your agents are getting what they need, and then it grows and then people will be attracted.
Well, here's the thing. Let me just say, it's easy. Like you and I agree. We're aligned in that, lead with value. But I'm in coaching circles with broker owners around the country. And like, everything is geared towards recruiting. That's always, 80% of the training, 80% of the help that brokerage owners think they need help recruiting. And I just think it is so obvious that that's not the answer. You need to focus on being the best brokerage.
Well, there is absolutely. And then there's the clash though, where if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So how do you work that? And I've been in situations where we're bringing so many people in the front door, recruiting, and as many or more are going out the back door. So I don't know if it's real that a firm can actually have those two focuses and do them well.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. If you're not growing, because as we grow, we increase our expenses, right? We bring on more staff, more office locations, more technology. And so, as our retained earnings go up, we then spend more of that. And so, yeah, if the agent count goes down for any brokerage, that's going to be a problem. So growth is important because the more we grow, the more we can do for our people. But man, it's like if you're recruiting, like what's causing that growth? Is it value or is it a good sales pitch? And you hired a good recruiter because you're dying if you're not growing, but you're also dying if you're growing for the wrong reasons. It's just a slower and I think more painful death because your agent count is going up, but your value proposition isn't going up. And eventually when you have that attrition, you're going to run out of agents that don't know about you, right? If you're a brokerage that's based on, high agent count and that's your model and you lead with recruiting and whatever other strategies, right? If it's revenue sharing, stock options, whatever the things are that companies can use to try to grow, it's like eventually people are going to know if there's any substance to it or not. And eventually agents will have either already been with your company and left, or they'll still be with your company. They find value in whatever it is you're doing, or they will have decided they don't want to go to your company. And so, what do you do then if all you can do is grow with new agents coming into the industry? That changes the model. I mean, the model's got to be based on something other than a sales pitch.
Absolutely, and often it's not just a sales pitch, it's sometimes the recruiter themselves. Like you said, to get a good recruiter, it's not necessarily their pitch or their sales, it's the person themselves.
Sure.
They're attracted to that person comes over, or they have a friend that's over there, and they follow the friend, and those 2 reasons are not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not somebody that's gonna stick, because that recruiter could leave, and that agent could get disgruntled, and then it starts to fall apart.
Yeah. So right, what's there that the brokerage is delivering that is going to be valuable to that agent, regardless of how they got introduced to the brokerage? There's got to be the meat there. And you're right about the people. Like a lot of times, even agents that are coming to my company will say, like, I love the people at my brokerage. And it's like, well, that's great. But I've always said from day one, like, I don't want Choice Residential to be about Brian. I mean, there's a reason why it's not Hourigan Residential. It's about a concept. It's about an idea. It's funny. I was talking to somebody and this dawned on me, like, in one of the Batman movies, he talks about, or somebody talks about that, Batman, the person can die, but the idea of Batman is what lives on. And so like, that's the idea, is that the choice as a concept, as the mission, the values that we stand for, that's what it is. Like people might be attracted to what a person stands for, but it shouldn't be about me. It should be about an idea that survives beyond me, because I can't be the person everybody calls. If we have 1,000 agents or 10,000 agents, it better not be about me. I won't have much of a life.
So you're not recruiting, you don't have a goal. What's keeping your agents there? And we already talked about the attraction piece. So why are they staying with you?
I want to ask, we do virtually have very little attrition. I don't know, man. I think about this a lot. I had an agent ask me last week, an agent who's coming over. She said, led the call with, tell me about what makes Choice special. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I don't know. To me, it's not special. It's not novel. It's just paying attention to our agents. A lot of companies struggle with how to support the messy middle. They figured out how to support the brand new agent with all this training, flood them with training. Then the top teams, they've got expansion models and they've got revenue sharing that they can build on. And so the top and the bottom are supported, and every brokerage seems to struggle with what they coin the messy middle, which of course is like a derogatory term to how to describe them. But I think like we knocked that out of the park, because it's not rocket science. When they call and need help, you answer, you pay attention to them, you listen to them. What are the things they need? One of the ways that our company's evolved is ideas from our agents. I have my views on the way a brokerage should be run and what an agent would find valuable. That's how I started the company. Is I looked at, once I decided I was no longer aligned with KW, I began my journey to figure out, well, where do I go next? So I had gotten into leadership with KW, and then so stepped out of production. And so I was like, well, I'm leaving KW. I'm just going to get back into production, right? I'm being drawn into leadership, but I'll figure that out eventually. I'm just going to get back into production for now. And I started looking at all the other brokerage options. And I remember coming home saying to my wife, like, this just everywhere, everybody I go talk to, it seems like the same thing packaged up and just delivered with different words. So like, if there's nowhere I want to go, what if I just created a brokerage I'd want to work for? So in a lot of ways, this, Choice is a vision, is the result of a vision of what I think an agent would want. But I've learned over the last 7 years, I don't represent every agent out there. So I have to listen to what agents are doing. I have to hire staff that understand our philosophy and that also want to listen to our agents and not just force a way that we think is right down their throat. So I think like one of the ideas we talk about a lot is that we support our agents where they are. And so I think that's why any given agent who has a different life outside of real estate, a different history, a different production level, why they can all find value here is because we focus on supporting them wherever they are and not just saying, well, this is the way we do it. So it's kind of a general answer. I don't have a specific answer other than we listen to our agents and try to give them back what they're asking for.
And your model is different. It's not different. It's out there. There are other people doing it as far as having that transaction fee only. If you want to get into that, you can. That can't be your only value. I know it's attractive because people get keep most of the money they're making, and if they're talented, and they know what they're doing, they're able to spend that in the right way.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
there's got to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, so for sure. I mean, if it was only the compensation plan, it would be a revolving door. Agents in, agents out. And eventually they would realize there's no culture. It would just be, they'd go somewhere else because somebody else can always hang a shingle and charge less. So like for me, it's not about a race to the bottom in terms of what the brokerages collect. It's about just being fair and equitable with, how technology allows us to scale certain things. And so what do we have to charge in order to be a profitable business and be able to continue to grow and add that value? When I was looking for that other brokerage, right, when I was getting back into production, I said, well, you either have like on one end of the spectrum, you have brokerages saying we provide a lot of value. Now, whether they deliver on that value or not is debatable, but we deliver a lot of value and we take this, customary split, whatever that is, 20 to 50%, something like that. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, which is, we don't take hardly anything from you. We're transaction fee based, but there's no value, or we're virtual. And, I struggle with the virtual model. I don't believe that is a way to cultivate culture and deliver value. So for me, virtual model is never going to be the answer for me. But you have those two ends of the spectrum. And so I said, well, can you take both? Can you take whatever an agent would find valuable, whether it's the people, the leadership, the agent support, the technology, the location, culture, whatever it is about their brokerage under any brand, doesn't matter. What if you could harness all of that value and pair it with the transaction fee compensation model? Could that work? And so that was the question that I had to answer. And lots of spreadsheets later, ultimately what I decided is yes, it can work as long as profit isn't the driving force behind what you're doing. And so in the evolution of me starting Choice, it was this internal understanding that I was no longer going to do things just for money. I was making a lot of money as an agent selling houses, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And so I said, well, I can't do this just based on money. I'll tell you, you might think this is, BS, but we almost operate more like a nonprofit than we do a capital enterprise. And don't get me wrong, we're not a nonprofit. Yes, we make money. I like making money. I have expensive tastes. Whatever, right? I want the company to make money because of the immense value that we bring and because a lot of agents want to work here. But, when I think of it, I'll give you an example. Our transaction fee right now today is $450 a transaction. Half of our agents think that our transaction fee is $495. So they don't even know. I mean, literally, I'll get an agent coming to me and say, yeah, so-and-so referred me. They said the transaction fee is $495 on your first 12. And I said, well, okay, but it's $450. Or an agent will sell their own home and the attorney, so they won't charge themselves a commission, and the attorney will send the transaction fee. It'll be $495. And I'm doing a direct ACH transfer for $45 back to the agent. But so half of them think it's $495. So I could literally today, now our transaction fee hasn't changed since I started the company, but I could today change our transaction fee to $495. Half the agents wouldn't even know that it changed. The other half wouldn't care because they think that we provide too much anyway for what we're charging. So, but my thing is, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should do it. If I'm running the company through an agent's perspective, I don't care if my brokerage makes money, but I want to know why they're doing what they're doing. I don't want them just to make more money just because they can, because I'm the one paying for it, right? I'm the agent. I mean, we can get into this too, but this is one of my challenges with publicly traded companies, not just in real estate, but especially in real estate where we are independent contractors. And when you listen to a CEO of one of these publicly traded real estate firms talk about increasing revenue and decreasing expenses, who pays the revenue? The agent, right? What do the expenses pay for? Value to the agent. So if you're increasing revenue, decreasing expenses, that's on our backs as the agent. Right. And that always pisses me off,
I was at an event not too long ago, and the person who was running the coaching program, which the agents pay, stood up on stage saying proudly that they are one of the most profitable coaching programs in the country. What? Why would somebody say that? It's coming out of their pocket. Their audience is paying them to make money.
That's right.
So that's to a good point. And decisions are made when you're a publicly traded company. Decisions are made not necessarily for the right reasons, and definitely not always in the best interest of the agent, for sure, or the consumer, which we're seeing more and more right now, where decisions are being made to drive that bottom dollar, and it is not in the best interest of the sellers and the consumer in general, and buyers. We won't get into that. Yeah. The whole clear cooperation thing, that is just drives me crazy. So the not having a goal and having such a tight number for 495, 450, 150, you must run lean. How do you manage the business end of that?
Yeah, I mean, so we do a lot of transactions. I mean, we have good revenue coming in, but like when I was at KW, an office my size, so again, 225 agents, like the office I was at would have been targeting $1 million in profit at that level, right? $1 million in owner profit.
Okay.
Well, that's not my goal though, right? So I'll be happy to make $1 million, but not at 225 agents. So I don't have any other owners, any other investors. So there's no other hands in the pot that are expecting distributions or trying to hold our money accountable. It ends with me. So that's part of it. Then, okay, we just have to make good decisions. And we don't have 10,000 square feet of Class A office space. I own the office condo that I'm standing in right now, right? So we do have a lease for our Apex office, but that's only until I can find space to buy, right? So we make good decisions on that, on the technology we use. We have to make decisions that are scalable, and knowing that like a piece of technology, for the most part, is not why an agent joins a brokerage. They're going to go find the technology that supports their business. So it's the people, it's the relationships. And guess what? Caring about somebody doesn't cost anything. That's, part of the identity and the culture that we have. Ultimately, you have to figure out other ways to generate revenue. So for example, I have a joint venture for a title insurance company with a well-known local closing attorney that has multiple offices and attorneys. And so I tell our agents very transparently, I mean, that's another thing, transparency is a big part of who we are. But I tell them, look, you don't have to use this closing attorney, but when you do, it generates revenue for the brokerage. When revenue is generated for the brokerage, we're able to put that back into the company that benefits you as the agent, right? So we're just very open about that. It's not like this hidden thing. I'm not putting a subpar product in front of the agents and asking them to utilize that so that I can make more money and so Brian can go on more vacations. Like everything starts with what's the value to the agent first.
And I'm sure that allows you to keep that full 50 at full 50 if you have other sources of revenue. So when you first started this, let's back this up.
Yeah.
When you first started, were you still selling? Were you selling under choice?
So day one, I gave up my buyer side of the business. The very first agent I hired, who's now our managing broker, she took over all my buyers on day one. In July of 2019, I got invited to go to a Tony Robbins concert in Dallas. And while I was there, I had the realization that I was still taking listings at that point. But on one of the breaks, I called Ashley and said, when I get back, you get all my listings now too. Because the only reason I was still taking listings was fear. I was afraid of losing that income, of losing that money. But that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to build choice, and taking listings, continuing to work with consumers was going to hold me back from doing that. So yeah, on day one, it was always, I knew I was getting out of the business, but it took 1 year for me to be fully out of production. And
what was that like? That had to be,
terrifying.
What were you thinking?
Terrifying.
What was going on in your head?
That's like that whole part of the business. I mean, it's like a blur. I think I just like blacked out and ran with it. I mean, there are a lot of scary times where it's like, is this thing going to work? Like, I mean, how are we going to make money? I mean, I bought this office condo in November of 2019. We had 12 agents and I'm buying a freaking office, like, what am I doing? I believed in what we were doing, but yeah, it was scary because every time we added more agents and increased revenue, I'm bringing on some other tool or hiring somebody. And so we just never, in the early days, you never got ahead because, I never had that cushion. So there were times when the operating account was very low and I was like, man, what do we do here? And, in the back of my mind, it's always like, well, I could go sell a house, right? I mean, I still my database. Look, I treated my database the same way I treat our agents, right? I mean, it was all relationship based. So I still had people calling me and then I would, get them over to Ashley. I'm like, well, gosh, if I have to, I can sell a house, and put that in the operating account. It never came to that. Fortunately we grew, but yeah, there were a lot of years there where it was like, man, on paper, I can see how it's going to work, but only if people join the company,
right.
And when you don't recruit, it's hard to just turn the faucet on.
So in the early days, you didn't have the mass of people. And I know your agents don't recruit for you. They're not getting compensated. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I won't say recruit, but they absolutely tell our story. But
right. I mean,
not get compensated for it. Yeah.
They're not compensated.
No.
Yeah. So they attract people, which is the real reason. They're doing it for the right reasons. When they're talking to somebody about joining your firm, there's no other incentive except they value what they're getting and they think that other person's going to benefit from it. I was at a Realtor Association event and this brand new agent walks in and says hello. And without even barely knowing her name, 3 other agents from the same firm say, oh, you should come join us, with absolutely no clue who she was, what she wanted, how happy she was, none of that. It was just, it was so just out of place, and it turned me off in a big way to this whole recruiting and the downlining and all that. It's not always in the best interest of the agent to be doing that. Let's go back. You're not recruiting. You don't have the bodies, the mass of agents that are going to attract. I know you said it was scary and hard. How did you keep that momentum going? How'd you keep your head in the game and not go into the fetal position and just stop?
Our agents believe in what we were doing, right? I mean, our agents were so happy. So like, I think that's just me believing that we were going to make it. Eventually we were going to be successful. I always tell agents, like, I was never one for script practice. I didn't call somebody and have a script partner, but I talk to myself a lot. So when I'm driving, I'm always talking, and I, call it daydreaming, but I think of it as like, vision casting. But, I think about what it's going to look like and feel like, to be successful or to hit these benchmarks or whatever. So I continue just focusing on that. Like, I believed in what we were doing. Our agents believed in it. They go out of their way to tell me how much they appreciate what we're doing here. And so like that certainly helps. I mean, that doesn't pay the credit card bill, but like that certainly helps make me feel like we were on the right track. And so that's what it's been. I mean, even now, like, yes, we've, the proof of concept is there, but it's still hard because again, like we don't have just all this profit coming in that, that is just my extra money. So like you have this idea of continual improvement, but that means continually spending more money. I'm more comfortable today for sure. But yeah, I guess that's it. The agents buying in is what made it seem like we were doing the right thing.
That's great. With their buy-in, I've been with a few different firms, and often when we get to the situation where the agent is being given marketing money or incentive to come over, that creates this whole negative churn with the other agents who didn't get that same deal. And then when that deal ends, out the door they go. So what you're doing is everybody's evenly dealt with, right? Everyone gets the same thing, and there's no rivalry. What can you do about if someone wanted to come over as a team? Are you capable of doing that?
Yeah. So we have a number of teams here. I mean, last year we actually had 5 independent brokerages roll into Choice. Yeah, because they looked at it and said, well, we went independent because we wanted autonomy, but then oops, now there's a brokerage to run. That's not much fun. And so when they realized like, oh, I can come to Choice and you have the infrastructure and you don't take much money, I can just operate there. Like I don't have to deal with compliance and all that kind of mess. So yeah, so we absolutely have teams here. We treat the team members the same way we treat anybody. So the transaction fees are the same, all that, everything applies to all the team members the same way. So for a team, it just gives them, we have the training and the technology, the culture, we have the collaboration so they can plug into that. But then they have a blank canvas to do whatever they want with their team members. I mean, a buyer agent would still rather just pay $450 on a transaction than some split with a brokerage that they're not really connected with. Like, and a lot of times team members, they're joining the team. They don't actually care what the brokerage is. For us, if that's the way that the team wants to operate, that's fine. But we encourage the teams to have their agents engaging with what we do. And that's part of the value proposition. We're not there to like compete with the team. We're here to enhance the team. So
is it to the point where non-team agents don't even know if someone's on a team? Is it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that can definitely exist, especially the team members who, we do like coffee with Brian once a month. And so you'll have team members showing up to that. The other agents there have no idea that person happens to be on a team.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, that's not the point. I mean, it's healthy competition, right? It's not like tear you down competition. And that part of it, honestly, I don't know how you do that, right? If I don't know that I could go into a brokerage where they had unhealthy kind of competition amongst the agents and say like, well, this is how you correct it.
Right. It's top down, right? Culture comes from the top.
Yeah.
And just by the way you started this firm, and we're not so stressed out about, you were stressed out, and yet you didn't change your tactics when you were not growing as fast as you like, when you had those 12 agents, you didn't change your course. You stuck with it. And that is huge for the culture that you have. And the agents feel that way. They know you're still like that. So that can't be manufactured.
I mean, whether this is a character trait about me that can be, a positive or a negative, but I do want people to like me. And so that could be an unhealthy character trait if that, holds people down and gets in their head. But for me, it turns into, it manifests itself in needing to treat people fairly. And so I can't lay my head down at night if I'm not doing that. And so, yeah, it forces me into a situation where I've got to do right by people. It doesn't matter that I can get away with something else, but I have to do it because that's what's going to allow me to feel good at night. And we had our awards night a few weeks ago. We do this awards night, which also, by the way, was another thing that was an idea from our agents. When I was at my previous firm, I went to the awards breakfast. They did a big awards breakfast at Prestonwood Country Club, right? That's where it was every year. And man, I didn't enjoy going, but I went because I was, a leader in the office and it was expected of me. And so I went. And so when I started this company, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, my view of an awards banquet was this boring, stuffy breakfast at Preston. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not us. That's not the company. And so I didn't do it for the first few years. And then I had some of our top agents say, hey, it's nice what you do. Like, you recognize us monthly and you give out these like certificates at the end of the year, but it'd be nice if we did something to like kind of celebrate the agents. And then, of course, in my mind, I'm like, well, who's going to pay for that? You're going to plan it and who's going to pay for it? But in the end, we did it and it was a big hit. And now we've done it 3 years and like we've maxed out our space. We did it at the stock room downtown. Like, we've outgrown that space. We had almost 200 people there. But what I was going to say about that is that I had 5 husbands come up to me. So their wives are agents of choice now that joined, sometime over the last 12 months. And they made it a point to pull me aside, 5 of them separately, at 5 separate times throughout that evening, to say, I just want to thank you for what you're doing here. My wife's demeanor and her enthusiasm about real estate has completely changed since joining your company.
Wow.
And so like, that isn't, to me, is not even a testament to us. Like, it translates into like Choice is doing something special, or, Brian is doing something. But I mean, unfortunately, I think it's more of an indictment on what's happening everywhere else, more so than like, dude, I don't have some proprietary technology that I'm giving my agents that makes them like it here. It's treating them like they're important, that they like being here.
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier. You're not overselling. You have what you have, and this is it. And it's a good program.
That's part of wanting people to like me, because I hate, as a consumer of anything, feeling like I was tricked, right? So like, the number one way to lose with Brian Hourigan is to make me feel like I'm being taken advantage of. And so, I mean, I think sometimes I undersell the company. Like, when I was talking to prospective agents, our VP of operations, she used to be in a lot of those meetings with me when she first kind of stepped into a staff role at Choice. And we'd get out of these meetings, she's like, you talk about Choice like it's just not even that good of a company. And I'm like, yeah, I probably need to improve upon that, but like, I don't ever want to oversell. I'm just kind of like, you should be here. If it's not a good fit for you, obviously you shouldn't be here. And so let me tell you this too. So one of my, like, the things I'll tell agents when I talk to them is, I say, look, I own the company. Of course, I think it's a great company. It's my baby, right? But the agents who are here, they're the ones whose opinion matters. Like, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about Choice. I said, but go to our roster. Don't tell me who you're going to call. Now, you should try to find agents who have similar production levels, but regardless, go to our roster, call anybody you want and ask them what it's like to be at Choice, because that's what really matters. What do the agents think? And by the way, as you said before, they don't have any incentive to tell you anything differently.
That's right.
I mentioned that on a coaching call recently with other brokerage owners, and the person facilitating was like, wow, that's like, you got to really look yourself in the mirror and be like, do I have the confidence to tell somebody thinking about joining my firm to go call any agent, not the ones I handpicked for you, but just any agent on the roster without any filter? But like, I realize that's like in a perfect world, but like, shouldn't that be what it is? Like, if the agents are there, shouldn't it be because they want to be there?
Absolutely. How do you keep that going with 200 agents? You have 2 disparate offices, one in North Raleigh, one in Apex. They're not big enough, either one of them, to hold all 200 people.
Yeah.
How do you keep that culture going? How do you keep everybody happy?
Yeah, that is probably the thing, right? That's the hardest part. And so every Monday we have this call called a weekend wrap up, and we get anywhere between 75 and 95 agents on that call every Monday morning. And it's just a collaborative mastermind about what's happening in the market. I mean, of course, those numbers, grow as the brokerage grows, but that started during COVID because 2 reasons. One, the market was changing so quickly. I was like, we need a way to really share what is happening in real time so that agents can pivot and advise their clients in a meaningful way. But number 2 was, even though we have at that time, we just had one office, but even though we're a brick and mortar, like, the reality was when I left KW, nobody was in the office anymore. Right. So that's just the way it is in real estate and a lot of industries. So like, how do we get our agents to engage in that kind of virtual environment? So like we started that weekly call so they could jump on, get to know each other and engage in that way. I also started in 2019, so before COVID, these things I call daily videos, which are these little like micro trainings. It might be a 2, 3, 4 minute video on some specific topic. It could be a script, it could be a marketing strategy, it could be an explanation about a form, it could be whatever. And I send those out 3 times a week, go out first thing in the morning. And the idea was they can hear from me. I may not see them all the time. I mean, there are agents I may not see over the course of an entire year because they don't show up in office. They don't show up to any of the events we do. Fine. But they could still see and hear from me in their inbox every morning. So that was a way for me to be present with the agents. And then, I hired, like you talk about how we use our revenue. We have a events and marketing manager whose job is to manage and plan all of our events and all of our in-person trainings. Like we do a lot of stuff. Of course, we do a lot of virtual, but we do a lot of stuff in person so that our agents can interact in real life. I mean, that's why, again, you heard me say it before, like I don't buy into the virtual model as being a value add model because I don't see how you can cultivate culture in that kind of environment. And now you perhaps could, but not if profit is the number one factor, because you've got to then hire people who are bought into your belief to cultivate that, right? I mean, because otherwise you're just going to get small groups of agents that become friends and they hang out. But the goal is to be a big brokerage, because then you get the collaborative, like the wealth of knowledge that comes with having hundreds or thousands of agents. There's a lot of value there. So to have that, and yet when your agents describe it, they say it feels like a boutique brokerage. Like that's what you try to do, but it's just intentional. It takes effort. It takes me paying a salary to somebody to manage all of these in-person events.
Yeah, smart. So what does growth look like? I know you don't have any goals.
Yeah.
Do you look at new offices, new areas? What do you think?
So while I don't set a specific growth goal, there's no question that growth is in my mind every single day, because I believe that us growing benefits the agent. So yeah, it's additional satellite offices around the triangle. When we opened up Apex, it was based largely on the fact that like we have a map of where all of our agents live that we provide to our agents also so they can see and like get coverage and help and stuff. But we had a lot of agents that lived in that Southwest Wake area. So it made sense to do that. If we have a collection of agents that are down in like Clayton Garner area, then that may become an office. Wake Forest, Chapel Hill, Pittsburgh, whatever. So yeah, I would like to continue opening satellite offices around the triangle. We have a few agents that are in Charlotte and Wilmington because they moved. And when they moved, they didn't want to leave Choice. And so we expanded our MLS access just organically because of that. So those are markets that eventually we'd like to get into. But like, I really want to focus on going deep in the triangle and then let that kind of like organic, when it just makes sense to go to those, Charlotte or Wilmington or Fayetteville, like when it makes sense because we already have some activity there, then we can go do that.
How do you see yourself handling the challenges of the expansion and still keeping that culture, still being present? Do you feel as though those weekly chats and seeing you in the email is going to continue to be enough?
Yeah. So I think that's where, again, it comes down to, it has to be about having leadership people in place that buy into what we're all about. And look, the bottom line is if I pay them well, why do they care if the company's not making, printing money? So if they appreciate how I treat them as, talking about my staff members, if as their leader, if I'm empowering them, and they believe in what we're doing, that's the important thing, is having those people in place. So I've always said, as we grow, I mean, this is not a perfect science, but roughly every 100 agents, we need an additional leadership position, and leadership meaning like a managing broker type role, because agent support is like completely central to what we're all about. So we don't ever want to be like a 800 number call center type of support, or it takes 2 days to get a call back from somebody. Or you've got an agent who's been in the business 2 years handling the phone just because you'll get anybody with a pulse to answer broker calls. Like that's not how we're going to do it. So as we grow, it just means investing in that kind of talent. And it means always having that bench, because like when I hired Ashley into her role as a managing broker, like I started talking to her last July about it. And then she started January 1st. So, it was an evolution because I could see how we were growing. I knew when we were going to get to a point that we needed that support. And I mean, it worked out almost to the exact number, right? I said every 100 agents. So at 200 agents, we needed a managing broker. We ended the year at 201 agents. So, or 202, whatever it was. So, when we get to 300 agents, you've got another leadership position coming in so that we can make sure. So the hard things for me are going to be like logistics. What if you have 500 agents? What if you have 1,000 agents? It doesn't matter if they're all in the triangle, across the state, whatever. It doesn't matter how many leadership positions you have. They've got to know who to call, who's their person. So we have ideas on how we will handle that. The whole point, like we're talking about it today. How do we handle it so that when that day arrives, we're not scrambling trying to figure it out.
And you mentioned your coaching group. What is that like, and how does that supporting you?
Yeah, so it's through the locker room coaching that Jake Dixon owns. And so it's really helpful for me. I mean, they do a lot of stuff virtually, they do in-person events, but I get to go mastermind with other brokerage owners. I mean, I was on a call with one up in Michigan, and their brokerage has 1,200 agents. A little slightly different model, but kind of similar concept. And so like, him getting to talk to him on, what were the struggles they had getting to 1,200, how do they manage certain things? So that's the value for me, is hearing about what people are doing. I've never been one, even as an agent, like I don't like just sitting in an all day training. I want to talk to somebody, because I don't, that person out there training may have a polished presentation. I don't know if they've ever done a damn thing.
That's right.
I want to talk to somebody who is doing what I'm trying to do and is willing to share with me. And then I'll give back everything I can. Of course, hopefully, that's part of my personality. It's like, I'll give. But I want to learn from the people who have been there and who are still independent, by the way, because, that's another struggle, is there are a lot of formerly independent brokerages who are now aligned with, revenue share models, which is fine. But like, because I can't say, like, I don't, if you own a brokerage and you've got 1,500 agents and you make a decision to align with a brokerage, that's fine. I'm not here to knock you. It's just that now we're different. Like now your structure is different than my structure now. So I can't get the same thing from you, because if you're just trying to recruit me in my brokerage, then you're not really delivering value like that I'm trying to get.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's through the locker room. That's what's been important for me, is just connection with other brokerage owners.
That's great. So the locker room, is that for your agents as well?
We don't really use it for the agents right now, because we have to, if you provide some kind of education platform, whatever it is, if at the brokerage level, you aren't consistently reinforcing that and driving your agents to that, it's just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. And we didn't have the bandwidth. Like it wasn't part of our value proposition at the time to really dedicate the energy to drive traffic to it. So we took that off as a line item expense.
One of the things I've noticed, and this might be just a feeling, or when someone's driving those types of programs, it's almost like the agents say no. They don't want the sale. They don't want to deal with it. They put up a fence. Stay away from me. And I don't know why that is, because the locker room's a great program, and there are other great programs out there. Yet if you start to try to sell that to them, it's a turnoff.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, when I hired Kate Stedman, she's our VP of operations, but when I hired her, funny enough, like we talked about, we don't recruit, but I'll let you in on this secret. So I hired her for two reasons. One, to write a new agent training program. So we worked together. We created this 12-session new agent training program called Agent Launchpad. The second thing I hired her for was to recruit for us. And so she started in January of, 20 or January of 2021, maybe, I think is when she started. Yeah, January 2021. And we got about 15 days into the year, and we sat down and we're talking, and we're like, this is not what we do. This is not who we are. We are not going to pick up the phone and cold call agents. We're going to just refocus on the things that are important to us. And so, I try, because everybody tells you recruit, that's what they used to say at KW, like, lead generate more, solves all problems. As a team leader, it was recruiting solves all problems. It doesn't solve all problems, right? Recruiting doesn't solve the culture. It toxifies the culture. So anyway, even me, like I succumb to the idea that you have to recruit. And then we were like, no, we don't. That's not us.
Now there are agents that won't fit your model, right?
Yeah.
And without disparaging anybody, what is that? Who should not be knocking on your door?
Yeah. So like newly licensed agents, the only way we will hire a newly licensed agent is if they join a team. We know that we don't, because that way the team can wrap their arms around them in a way that we know we can't. Unfortunately, when you're newly licensed, you don't even know if you actually want to be a real estate agent. We don't think it's fair to our mission, to our agents, if we are investing a lot of bandwidth into that. So only if they join a team. Agents who are looking for leads, like we don't do that at the brokerage level. There's none of that. I wouldn't say we're no frills. I mean, but like we're not going to buy your business cards for you when you join. We'll give you the templates and we'll let you create your own if you want. And then like the mega teams, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't bring a big team on. It would take a lot of conversation up front to make sure that that's not going to impact our culture.
Yeah.
There's a lot of baggage that comes along, and not being ugly about it, but like there's a lot that goes on with a team that's doing 40, 50, 60, 100 million a year that has, 18 team members. Like I'd have to really think about how that fits in, because look, for us, whether you're selling 10 houses or 100 houses a year, the revenue for us is not much different because we cap out at 12 transactions, right? So
Right.
So that's it. But otherwise, honestly, like my vision for the company is that, that middle, let's call it 60% or 80%. I think we're the right fit for a lot of agents. I try to think about that a lot. I know that that's not a great answer. New agents.
No, no, you have to think about who's your avatar, right? I mean, you have to know who your agent is. And who,
Yeah. I mean, we try to the ideal agent avatar. That's another great one. We talk about it a lot, of course. For us, it is kind of a general idea, though, of an agent who has done some transactions, who has a little bit of experience, knows this is what they want to do, and doesn't need office space. So, like sometimes I talk to agents who say, "I need a desk, I need a cubicle," and if that, then I will unpack that with them to find out if they actually do want that. But if they do, like, oh man, it's like there was an agent, and I of course won't use their name, but they have a large team in Raleigh, and we were talking about the idea of them coming to Choice, and like I started to entertain the idea because they didn't want to leave. They needed office space for the team. They didn't want to get into a lease themselves. And so that's why they liked the brokers they were at. They could just pay monthly for all the offices. And I briefly entertained the idea of like going out and leasing or buying office space just for this team. And then I said, what am I doing? Like, this is where I can't change the way we do things for that. So
is there a range of transactions volume that they're doing that is the right fit?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that matters. Like, we could have an agent doing one trend. I mean, look, we have an agent here who, I mean, probably will never sell another house, but they just like being a part of what we do. And so they pay $99 a month to be an agent here. And that's fine with us. Like, I'm not going to chase them out. Because then as your transaction count grows, you're probably going to build a team. And so we support that, right? I mean, if you're doing 100 transactions, it's not a lot of, like, I did 60 transactions my last year of production as a solo agent. I would not wish that upon anybody. I don't think most people are going to do that without building a team, and we support that.
Because you're not driven by the agents doing more and more transactions, are you still providing and pushing them to increase their business? What's your way of trying to get them to stay in the game, or do you even drive that?
Yeah. Right. We talked about that, have been talking about that recently. I mean, we provide a lot of training, support, counseling, coaching on trying to help agents grow their business. They have to want to do it, of course. And so we've been talking internally a lot lately about, how do we help agents, increase productivity, especially coming out of like two of the hardest years since the Great Recession in terms of transaction count falling off a cliff. But I think I said it earlier, like one of our core values is supporting agents where they are. I was really turned off in my production career because when I did 60 transactions, instead of anybody asking me like, all right, how do I feel about that? Like, where do I want to go from here? What was that past year like? It was, okay, great. How do we get you to 120 transactions? And it was like, well, wait a second. Like, nobody even asked me if that's what I wanted. I was miserable at the end of that year and nobody cared to ask that. So like for me, for us, for a company, it's very much like, yeah, you want to grow, but if you want to do 10 transactions a year, we'll help you do that efficiently. If you want to do 100 transactions a year, we'll also help you get there. You have to want to do it, right? There's no easy button. I mean, I think it's like, we don't have one-on-one coaching for every agent, but for every agent who wants to meet with me or to meet with Ashley or Kate or anybody on our team, we're here for that. But we're not going to put people in like a weekly coaching where they're, it's coming up on their 30-minute call and they're like, shit, what am I going to talk about today? And I didn't do the things I was supposed to last week. And no, we don't, I don't buy into that. So not internally. So agents who want coaching, that's great. If you want that type of coaching, that's just not what we bring.
Right. Good. So we know where you're going. We know how you got there, but there's still something that's keeping you up at night. What is that? It's got to be.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it is, sometimes I get caught up on like not knowing the details of how we're going to do things in the future. I think about it a lot, but like, it's hard. I mean, I couldn't have known what it was going to be like to run this company with 225 agents. And so I today don't know what it's going to be like to run the company with 1,000 agents. And I believe we will get there. And the the thing is always, I mean, you've kind of alluded to it. How do you grow and continue to offer the value and the culture that you have? And like, that's the thing. That's the most important thing. So I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but I'm certainly aware of that's my challenge. That's my opportunity as a leader, is to say, like, how do I retain that culture as we continue to become larger? So yeah, there's that. And then there's just the broader, real estate landscape of, what does real estate as an industry look like in 5 years, in 10 years? Some people, when they think that like NAR membership's going to come down, they'll look at a brokerage, like a transaction fee brokerage, and say, well, that might hurt them because they need agents, right? And so if there's fewer agents in the marketplace, then their numbers are naturally going to come down. But of course, I mean, I see you shake your head. Like I look at that and I say, well, I don't think so, because agents are then going to leave those other models and want to come to a transaction fee brokerage potentially. So like, I see that as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I was dropping anyway.
I know. I was over at the association and they've exceeded their goals.
Yeah.
I think they're at 95% increase. I mean, it's just their numbers are great. They're not, there's no big dip. And
No.
everybody said the same thing in 2008. All these people are going to get out of the business. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
That might be a little bit, but nothing that is going to be affecting too many people.
But I've learned, I mean, for me, it's like a stay in my lane. So the things I'm going to worry about naturally are not, I don't care about what, another brokerage is doing. I keep up with what's going on. I consider it part of my job to understand what's happening in the real estate world. But for me, the stress, when I wake up on Monday morning, it's funny, like when I was an agent, I never had a Monday morning, right? Everybody wakes up Monday morning, it's like, oh, I got to go to work. Well, then I started a brokerage and it was like, oh, it's different now, like Mondays used to just be like a Wednesday. It didn't matter. So now I wake up on Monday, I'm like, all right, like I got the week ahead of me. What are we going to accomplish? What challenges are we going to face? And so I have some of those kind of normal work life, emotional roller coasters now.
Mondays are always a brutal day for me right now.
Yeah.
But it just is, because you got to get it up and running. And
yeah, so we have that weekend wrap up call, which usually takes about an hour. And oftentimes it's like tripling over an hour. And then like, as soon as I get turn that call off, my phone starts blowing up. Like everybody wants to be the first person to catch Brian after the weekend. So like, it takes me till like noon to dig out on Mondays usually.
All right. This has been fantastic. Really. Thank you for opening up and sharing so much. What would you recommend if someone who has the ambition to open their own brokerage? What would you tell them?
So I talked to, through my connections in the locker room, I do get to talk to a lot of brokerage owners, some experienced, some just started out. And it's the same advice I give to somebody wanting to start a team, which is to really spend time with yourself, figuring out why is it that you want to do this? Because if you don't have a clear vision on why you want to start your own brokerage, it is going to be a headache. Because I think people start their own brokerages a lot of times for the wrong reasons. Like I told you before, it was like, I'm frustrated with my brokerage, so I want autonomy, or I want to keep more of the money. There's got to be a bigger vision to why you want to start that brokerage. Because otherwise, in my opinion, now plenty of people out there will disagree with this, but like if you're a team-oriented model, especially if you're a smaller team-oriented model that has 2 or 3 agents and the owner is the top producer, I don't see any reason why that person should be an independent.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Should be affiliated with somebody that's aligned with them, but it doesn't make sense to be independent. So I think that's it. You see a lot of really small independents for that reason, because they're frustrated. They go independent, but they never gave thought to why they're doing it. So that's what I would say, whether it's a brokerage or a team, really get honest with yourself about what value you want to bring and why would somebody want to join you? I mean, you've got to have that part figured out, right?
So yeah, when I had my own firm for a bit, and I had that exact revelation where I was looking around at my peers and the other independent firm. I had the back in numbers, and I could see that the owner is still doing 30 to 60% of the transactions.
Right.
And what their value was, in most cases, was just a great split and nothing else.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I wasn't, well, this is in 2010, 3 years into it, I realized that it's going to take way too much time and way too much of an investment for me to be able to provide what I wanted to help other agents grow and help build my team. And then I just decided I joined a firm and brought my team over. I had all the infrastructure, and it just made so much more sense. Like you're saying, it doesn't help to be on your own and running the business, checking the technology, chasing just all that. It's tough. It's rough.
I mean, as an agent, even if you're not doing 50 or 60 transactions, like that's a lot of hours and just mental like bandwidth devoted. I mean, I remember never being able to stop thinking about like the things I had coming up to do. the next inspection or final walkthrough, whatever. It just occupied so much brain space. I couldn't wrap my head around how I was going to be in production and run a brokerage and add value to other people.
Right.
I don't see how anybody can have the bandwidth to do it. So, but again, nothing wrong with either way. Just know what it is you want to do. You try to do both really well. I mean, Gary Keller is not out showing houses. You got to pick the path you want to go down and then go at it 100%. But like when you're trying to balance both of them, I don't see how it can work. And I completely see how it would drive people crazy and cause burnout.
Absolutely. All right, Brian, it's been fantastic. Again, I appreciate your time. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and keep watching.
Awesome.